Bless him. Welcome everybody to the May meeting of the Naracoorte-Lucindale Council, where we acknowledge and respect our complex history, and we welcome everyone to build our future together. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed, recorded and published in accordance with the Council's live streaming and recording of public meetings policy. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of Council, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream and recording. Thank you. Item 2 is elected members' declaration of interest, and you've all received your disclosure form, and I'm sure you'll fill that out if needed. I've had no requests from the public forum to speak, and I have received no deputations or partitions. Item 5 is the confirmation of the council meetings of the council meeting of the 22nd of April. Someone like to move that Councillor Dennis? Was that? Oh, I got Councillor Maguire as he just went like that. But thank you, Councillor Maguire. All those in favour? Lucky you're not at an auction, Councillor Maguire. I would have got your bid for sure. The next item is: would someone like to move that the special council meeting held on the 30th of April be taken as read and confirmed? Councillor Downwood and Councillor Goodman. Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. I don't believe there are any matters on the table. Item 7 is my report. And I conclude that by having a discussion about the conditions around South Australia, which and discussions I've had with the Local Government Association and PPSA. And even though there has been, for us, just really locally, some incredibly timely rain, that's not the case across the state. And I'll be expanding my discussion with mayors from Mount Remarkable and further afield to try and get a little bit more traction in the drought space. Everyone understands that just because it's rained, the money has already been spent, and there's need for ongoing finance. So we'll do what we can in that space. Would someone like to second my report?
Second. I've just got a question.
You might.
Yep. In your discussions that you've had with obviously the various networks you've been talking to, what is the general consensus that's holding up the state government actually declaring drought? Has anyone mentioned anything that's holding it up?
So, drought declaration was taken away from at a federal level several years ago, because you would have a situation, for example, where it got down to drought declarations by hundreds, and so you could have whatever the one over at Kaibi is, for example, being drought declared, and one at Avenue Range being drought declared, or not being drought declared, and in fact they're all in the same boat. So there were lines on maps, and you could be one side of a 100 line or the other side, and in real terms there was no difference. So it was a really ordinary way to go. So no, there is no drought declaration, and there's been discussion had, Councillor Ross, about an emergency, a state of emergency. Well, if you do a state of emergency like there was at the floods, the River Murray floods, the police commissioner then becomes the state controller, and he is in charge. And what levers can he pull that would make a difference to what's actually happening in regional South Australia today? There most probably aren't any.
Yeah, the reason I was asking is just obviously people were talking about it, so it's just interesting to see, just to get it out there.
So, what we're having that discussion at more broadly is about the crisis in general terms and turning up the heat on both state and Commonwealth government. And you do that politically, or we can do that through local government by just being noisy and try to get the message across of our ratepayers across the state. I think that's, what we're charged to do.
No, that's fine.
Councillor Ross, second. Thank you, Councillor Ross. All those in favour? Thank you. I don't believe I received any elected members' reports. Councillor Goodman.
Thank you. I would like to acknowledge that today, the 27th of May, is the start of Reconciliation Week, which is an important week in our national calendar. I'd also like to acknowledge the First Nations people on whose land we meet this evening. Narracor is recognised as a meeting place for the Boandik people from the south, the Jawajali people from the east, the Miantank people from the west, and the Potowitch people from the north. And they came here to meet, to trade, to socialise and do business, which is how we utilise this land today. I think we all inherently understand the importance of acknowledgement and have personally experienced the value that being acknowledged brings, and that's why it's important to stand up and acknowledge our First Nations history during weeks like this.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman. Item 9, Chief Executive Officer's report.
Thank you, Mayor. There are several parts of this report, so if we can just deal with them one by one, that'll be fantastic. The first item relates to the Francis school bus and is purely a funding advocacy piece from this council requesting the Minister to pay attention to the needs of the Francis school community. So I'm hoping the information provided is self-explanatory, and I'm open to any questions or a resolution.
Would you like to move them one at a time? Would that be easier? I'd like to move the motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Motion to the Minister of Education. Thank you, Councillor Maguire. Councillor Crossley.
I'll second that as written.
As written. Any commentary? Thank you, Councillor Crosling. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried.
Thank you. The second one is in relation to waiving cemetery fees for stillborn and young children. This comes directly from the Select Committee that has been held in Adelaide and based on evidence provided to it about how parents feel when their young people die. If Council does determine to waive or adjust the fees in any way, this will be picked up in the fees and charges which are dealt with in a later agenda report as well. They'll flow through to that. The age of 10 was put into the recommendation based on what other councils are doing in this space. So far we have Salisbury, Robe and Berry-Barmera, as far as I understand, setting that as the parameter for the ages. So over to you for discussion, questions.
Councillor Maguire.
Move it and just briefly speak to it. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
I think it's a...
Councillor Crossley.
Sorry. I'd really like to support this motion. I've spoken to a midwife from the Narracor Hospital. I did see that Robe Council has just adopted it as well. I think it's a good step forward for this council.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. Councillor Crossley.
Yeah, I just wanted to support this motion as well. I think this is a step in the right direction for those families who, in a time of awful loss, don't have to pick up the tab for just part of those cemetery fees. So I think this is a great step forward.
Thank you, Councillor Crossley. Councillor Grundy.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Look, while we all are disappointed and saddened by any loss, I think the problem with this idea is that it seeks to set out that there's a different kind of grief, and that is that your grief is somehow worse than my grief. And further to that, it also sets out to put a price on that grief, and that is that your grief is obviously more deserving than mine, so we'll go ahead and waive the fees. So from that perspective, I think it's problematic philosophically. It's inconsistent, I think. So look, I think that I'm sure there's a policy that deals with this, and really I think the test should be hardship, and it should be hardship, and that's the end of the matter. And it really should be hardship for everybody. If we're going to go down this path, it needs to be, if it's going to be a good idea, it needs to be tested with the hardship test only, I think, and it needs to be there for everybody. I'm sure our policy covers off this situation in many ways. But having said that, you know, the policy is really a guiding document only, and I'm quite sure that there's an element of discretion that the council have. And so if anyone comes to council with a hardship problem to do with you know, a burial fee and that sort of thing, I'm sure that you know, the council would be sympathetic to that. So essentially, yeah, I really do think that if we're going to go down this path, it needs to be on a means tested or a hardship basis, and secondly, you know, it really needs to be for everybody or not at all.
Thank you, Councillor Grundy. Excuse me. I note that within our fees, that is in the minutes, that for stillborns to 2 years of age, it's about $600 and something currently, whereas the standard fee's in excess of $1,200. So there's already dispensation in that spot. So I just bring that to your attention just in case you weren't aware of that. Councillor Downwood.
Mr Mayor, I've spoken to a number of people in the community, and some of them have experienced this tragedy themselves. And while they say that every tragedy is a tragedy, no matter what stage it occurs, and all of those that I've spoken to are against this waiving the fee. One of the people had put to me, what about, if you're going to do that, what about people that are long-term ratepayers that have been paying their rates for 60 odd years or more? Do you look at them and give them a free pass for their time that they've paid rates in the community? But I just had a bit of a call around the local councils to find out what everybody else was charging, and I noticed that Millicent are $660 for under 12 years of age. Kingston are nearly $1,500. Robe were $1,100, which they've waived, and Matt Gambier is zero charge for less than 1 year, $313 for 1 to 2 years, and $560 for 2 to 12. So while we've got a price reduction for young ones, I quite frankly see that that's all we need to do. Again, this has come through to us from state government. And again, I say it's another thing where state government are bringing something to councils, but offering nothing in return for us to give them their largesse. So, thank you. I'll be voting against it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Downwood. Councillor Goodman.
I would like to thank Olivia Savas MP for her letter and for the work that she and the committee have done in looking into how we can better understand and support families that have experienced stillbirth. I have been backwards and forwards on my position on this, and I think it's a really challenging thought about, you know, how we can support families that are experiencing this kind of grief. However, I feel that this isn't something that's the responsibility of council. I think that I'd be very happy, I support the intention, but I think it's something that council could look to work with state government on implementing. I know it's only small dollars that we're talking about, but I also subscribe to the idea of a death by 1,000 cuts, and we're currently looking at delivering a budget that will be in deficit, but we're also continually being asked to provide more. And also, just in terms of what this kind of money looks like, we're currently proposing a minimum rate for a property of $550. We're talking around $600 for these kind of things, so that is a full rate fee for some ratepayers, and you know, that's not insignificant. So I'd be looking to see if there are other ways that we can support these families and work with state government on that.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman. If there's nothing further, if you'd like to close out, Councillor Maguire.
Thank you, Mayor.
You happy?
If I could just briefly...
I just saw his little flicker of...
No, little flick is good enough.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Grief is a very sensitive subject, and
I did check into this committee was set up to inquire into stillbirth, basically. And I just wonder, just because other councils have jumped onto the age of 10 and under as well, whether that's fitting for us to be putting that in place. I mean, it's a different subject altogether, I believe. Stillbirths to young children under 10. Thank you.
Councillor Maguire.
Thank you. I apologise to people that are watching that probably have experienced this. We're using such words as cost shifting, hardship, apply for hardship. I find the Chamber isn't very compassionate about this. It is nothing to do with state government cost shifting, and I'm probably disappointed that a few of you have actually looked at it this way. I think there was 2 to 3 stillborns in Narra Court this year, so the cost is minimal. Some people might not even take council up on the offer, but it is something we can provide to a grieving family, and I think we've all had friends and family that have experienced something like this. I look at the inconsistency in this chamber again. I see certain roads being picked out and trying to be adjusted in the road hierarchy, and yet there are similar roads that we could do the same for. So when you talk about consistency, I just find some of your comments insulting, because this is something we can do as a council about being compassionate to our community.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. The motion is that council waive all cemetery fees in relation to stillborn babies and children up to the age of 10, with the exception of the costs associated with plaques. All those in favour? 3. All those against? 3. The motion is lost.
Can I call into division, please?
You may. All those in favour of the motion, please stand. I have Councillor Maguire, Councillor Ross and Councillor Crosling. Thank you. And those against, I have Councillor Dennis, Councillor Grundy, Councillor Rayner, Councillor Downwood, Councillor Ireland and Councillor Goodman. Thank you very much. And the motion is lost. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just finally, the rest of my report is really just for information. So there is a recommendation that council receives and notes the report for April.
Thank you. Would someone like to move the CEO's report be? Thank you. Councillor Crosland.
Move it and just ask a question regarding this. I see with the vaccine correspondence that we have received a letter back from the Federal Minister. Has the Council received anything from state government regarding Allow?
Through you, Mayor, yes, I believe we had a letter received after the agenda was completed. So that'll be circulated.
Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Downwood. Any further questions? All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. The recommendation. Item 10, key projects. Mr Willsmore.
Thank you. Just wanted to add, for members' benefit, Miles Road was sealed. Some members witnessed it on our bus trip, but that job in particular has got a long history and was quite a challenging construction due to the inability to remove some trees and open up the enclosure. So just wanted to make mention that. It was a good job by the team to get that finished this financial year. Happy to take questions on the rest of the report.
Thank you, Mr Willsmore, and thank you for the photograph of Premier Drive and water running along the gutter. I only assume that the water will continue to run to the north and into the drain in the future. Thank you very much. And I'm assuming that Mrs Smith is delighted.
Haven't heard from her, so I assume she would be.
I'll touch base with her. Thank you. Mr Willsmore. Any questions of Mr Willsmore? Being none. Okey doke. Item 11 is the financial report. Mrs Edmonds.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Nothing further to add to this one, but happy to take questions.
There being no question, Mrs Edmonds, this is exciting. Well, they have complete faith in you, Mrs Edmonds. I think that's what it'll be. Thank you. Item 11.2.
Thank you again. So we now find ourselves at our third budget review stage. As we're all aware, we're in the midst of 25-26 budget preparation as well. So this should give you an idea of where we're looking to be sitting at the end of this financial year. So I've listed for you in the report just some key points and key indicators in terms of operating surplus, renewal and new expenditure and the asset renewal funding ratio in comparison to the original budget, but including the 23-24 actuals. So probably most importantly, and in relation to the 25-26 budget, we're looking at a forecasted cash balance of 6.917 million. So that's the amount that I'll now bring into the 25-26 forecasted or draft budget that we'll be discussing next week. Happy to take any questions. If I can't answer them now because there's quite a bit behind the works with it, then happy to take it on notice as well.
Councillor Maguire.
Sorry, Mayor, it's not a question to Mrs Edmondson. I can ask it with a question without notice, but I did have a question for Mr Willsmore regarding the operations. Can I ask that, or would you prefer me to wait till... I was just rattled.
Let's see how it goes. Councillor Maguire.
I was rattled, sorry. Thank you. Through the chair, it's Mr Willsmore. It's okay, don't, it's not anything. I was just looking at the Premier Drive update. I think it was about 900,000 we spent on it. Yep, looks great, and I'm sure that the contractor's done a fantastic job. I have expressed this before. My concerns are the active soil. I look at Butler Terrace. I drove down that again yesterday with the rain, and how much money we spent on that not so long ago. So I have a couple of questions, and you can take them on notice if you like. I guess in 10 or 15 years, if the infrastructure on that road starts to deteriorate again, and there's 20 houses and we've just spent just short of $1 million on it. As a council, how would we approach, we cannot afford to be upgrading this active soil roads and gutters and drainage every 15 years on a road like that. So my question is, as a council, if it turns out like Butler Terrace, and where do we go from here? My second question would be...
If I just may take that point. So I understand that Mr Willsmore, and in the redevelopment of Premier Drive, the engineering and design was substantially upgraded. So are you happy to take that on notice, Mr Willsmore, that question, or...?
I'm happy to respond to the question now. So the reality is it's quite a heavy area with reactive soils. So there's a number of processes that have been undertaken. It's not a standard pavement design. There's a number of bore logs that get undertaken to prepare your geotechnical report, which comes up with your pavement design. We've discussed this a number of times. The reality is, with a verge or someone's front lawn that gets wet and dried, there will be swelling of the area. So council probably as a whole need to understand that if you build on a swampy area, there will be movement. So we could go through and put 3 layers of concrete down, you're still going to get movement on the edge of the road where the curb is sitting and unsupported. So you've got that failure there, because if you go on concrete everyone's front yard, they're not going to have any lawn, but your road's not going to move, but you need to have those requirements there for people to maintain their areas. So we need to look at that. If we don't want to be developing areas that are swamps, we probably need to look at that under a planning requirement, but we do a number of tests to undertake, no different if there's developers doing it. We do an assessment on their review. They get independent engineering advice to make sure that that pavement design will suit, but I can't sit here and say in 15 years there's not going to be movement there.
Thank you, Mr Willsmore, and perhaps in the AMPs a little later in the year. That might be a question for council when it comes to future planning, and if that's, if you don't want to be put at risk, that might be something you'd like to take up. But you had another question.
Well, that leads on to another question, and thank you for your response, Mr. Willsmore. And I understand I've put you on the spot with that. It's, I agree with everything you've said, but we also put into place and we did everything we thought possible on Butler Terrace, and there was so many different procedures that we normally wouldn't do on a normal road to Butler Terrace, but the active soil is so unpredictable. I guess I'm just trying to say, as a council, we've just invested a lot of money in it. In 10 to 15 years, if it falls apart, again, where are we at? But anyway, we'll cross that bridge. My second question would be, leading on to that, is as a policy, if there is any new development down that way, can we develop a policy that forces the contractor, or the developer, I should say, to actually build that road to that standard that we have just built now? And I dare say the cost factor would be a lot more than the road that was previously built there, and that might be a deterrent within itself to stop people building on that active soil.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. We'll take that one on notice. Thank you very much. Yep.
So what we dug up at Premier Drive was about 150 mil. What we've put in is about 600 mil. So we've got that pavement design. I can't talk about what review was done at the time, but in development approvals that will come through now, that's, again, I mentioned before, that independent engineering assessment, but that layer, that profile we've just constructed, that's what we'd be expecting for stage 1, stage 2, or wherever they want to develop. So we have that approval requirement. Yes, it will have significant costs, and that may come back to the chamber, but that's what we'd be looking at, which will protect our interests, because we ultimately take over the asset once it's constructed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Willsmore. Any other questions? No. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you for allowing that.
11.3, is that where
We haven't dealt with the budget review.
Budget review. Would someone like to move? Councillor Ross, thank you very much. Seconder, Councillor Goodman. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. 11.3, fees and charges.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. So as part of our annual process, as you've all gone through a couple of times now, we look at the fees and charges for the upcoming financial year. This year we have, council set fees and legislative fees. So tonight we're looking at those council set fees. As per the report, we're looking at a CPI increase of 2.5% across the majority of fees. We're all aware of the arrangement with the NRLE fees with the throughput, the approach taken by the NRLE committee and as advised by the Audit and Risk Committee. Waste transfer fees are in line with contract negotiations with Envirotech. And I've provided you a list of those that we set in tonight's meeting. So happy to take any questions, and we'll note the stillborn fees based on tonight's discussion also.
Thank you, Mrs. Edmonds. Any questions around fees and charges? The only one I was interested in actually was around the sale yards, which we have sheep. We have a sheep fee, and then we have a cattle fee and a calf fee. So when does an animal become a calf, or when does a calf become a cattle? It's not a facetious question, but for example, and the price difference is $6. It's half for a calf. And I was wondering, what that is, if you know, Mr. Willsmore.
I'll take that on notice. We clarified that a couple of years ago. So
I'm sure the board would be interested to know. Excellent. Thank you very much. Could I have a mover? Have I got a mover for the fees and charges guide is endorsed and effective from July 1, 25? Councillor Ireland, Councillor Ross. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Item 12, audit and risk, minutes and recommendations. Would someone like to move that the minutes of the audit and risk meeting of the 23rd of April be taken as read and confirmed. Councillor Ross, Councillor Dennis. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. This is the meeting schedule for the Audit and Risk Committee until... I missed one. Reports relating to the performance of the NRLE on the 2nd of April be received and noted. Someone to move to that effect, please. And Councillor Grundy and Councillor Ireland, thank you. All those in favour? Carried. And now, this is the meeting schedule for the Audit and Risk Committee until June 26. Councillor Ross move. Councillor Downwood second. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. 12.2. It's be fairly dull stuff, really. That the minutes of the Strategic Asset Planning Committee held on the 13th of May be taken as read and confirmed. Would someone like to move to that effect? Councillor Grundy, Councillor Goodman. All those in favour? And next we have the Council support the request to provide assistance to the Yakka Park driveway relocation. Councillor Grundy, Councillor Crosling. Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. The Council note the decision of the Strategic Asset Planning Committee to defer consideration of the additional taxiway request at Lysondale Airstrip until the next Strategic Asset Planning Committee meeting. Councillor Downwood and Councillor Grundy second. All those in favour? Thank you very much. A question, if I may, Mr. Willsmore, have we had any response?
I haven't heard further from the CFS since the last meeting.
Thank you. A recommendation that Council undertake consultation on the proposed closure of the Struan House Road Bridge and report back to Council. A mover, Councillor Grundy and Councillor Dennis second. All those in favour? Carried. A recommendation to Council that the Mundalina Road is not resheeted in financial year 25-6, but options be scoped and presented to Council for consideration for financial year 26-7. Someone like to move to that effect? Councillor Goodman, Councillor Dennis. Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. That a report be provided to the Asset and Planning Committee as to the effect of changing the asset management plan for road dimensions, specifically limited access roads. That is, if these roads were brought back to 4 metres in width, where necessary, on a case-by-case basis, dependent on type and amount of usage. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Ireland. Second to Councillor Rayner. Thank you, Councillor Rayner. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 13, reports for decision. 13.1, resolution register.
Thank you, Mayor. This is just to introduce a new item to the agenda which basically allows Council to track resolutions and how they've been dealt with. The purpose is there's multiple reasons for it. One is to make sure that you're satisfied that the items are progressing, and one is that you're satisfied when they've been completed or marked as complete. So the first one that you have attached is quite lengthy because we've just put everything in, but anything marked complete, if you're satisfied it's complete, will disappear off that register. So next time you'll just get a shorter register to review. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure you took the opportunity to see how much there was. and completed. Thank you. Would someone like to move that we note the resolution table? Councillor Goodman, Councillor Downward, all those in favour? Thank you very much. Next. 13.2, Limestone Coast strip mining proposal.
Thank you, Mayor. So Council has had presentations, one from Limestone Coast Sustainable Futures, which happened before my arrival here. You have heard from the mining proponent and also the Department of Mines and Energy. We've received a formal request from Sustainable Futures for us to put in a submission that seeks some urgent analysis of the impacts of this sort of mining on the Limestone Coast. This reflects some of the things that you may have been hearing in the community as in regards to their concerns as well. So really this is just to address the ask from Limestone Coast Sustainable Futures. Any questions? Welcome.
Councillor Crossley.
Motion is written.
Thank you. Call for a seconder.
Can I speak to it, please?
Absolutely.
I'm very happy to support this because I think it's very important that the community receive the information that they're seeking in a transparent format and have their questions answered. I do think, though, that it is important to flag two things, and one is that the fact that the community is asking for this report to be done suggests that they do not have confidence in the current process. And I think that that is a problem that the Department for Energy and Mining needs to consider and look at, because there is a process. We're told that it is robust and it takes into consideration all of the issues that are being raised here. And if the community are not satisfied that it does that appropriately and are asking for these outside of process reports, there's a larger issue that the department needs to address. The second point I'd like to make is that this is about investigating aspects of strip mining. And as we have heard from the proponent, they are not currently considering strip mining. And so I hope that the people who are asking for this report and need the clarification get the answers they seek when and maybe it needs to be broadened, because that is not currently the mining approach that the proponent are suggesting they'll use.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman. If I could just remind you all, when we had the Department of Energy and Mines here in this chamber, that the question was asked whether their scoping, they call it their scoping, would have the same effect as a vulnerability assessment. And they said, almost. And so, you know, I think that's mostly left enough doubt within the community that if we are to be absolutely rigorous around this, that, you know, the opportunity to support a vulnerability assessment looms large, I believe. Have I got a mover and a seconder? I do. Thank you, Councillor Crossley and Goodman. Any further discussion being done? All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 3.3. Mr. McCloskey.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. The report is as written. I can confirm that Kingston District Council and Tatiara District Council have since endorsed Mayor Pope as the elected member for the panel. So just up to date that information for your information.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Maguire. Councillor Dennis. Seem to be outnumbered here a little. So I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. 13.4. Food Dude.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Okay. So we have Lucky Mataranga, who has recently established himself with a mobile food van, calling himself, as you say, the Food Dude. He's looking to utilise council road reserve, namely the car park where we often see Turk Bay on a Sunday and Monday between 10 and 9, or down at Pioneer Park on McDonald Street. I do believe he's currently trading on private sites, so he's up and going, very enthusiastic, and he's looking for council support to trade on council sites. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Crosling?
I'm happy to move that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Crosling. Seconder, please. Councillor Dennis. Any further questions? Being none, I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. Reports for information, 14.1. We don't have a Mr. Steed. As tabled. Thank you very much. 14.2, planning compliance. Mr. McCrosty.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Just a key point to note that the Limestone Coast Regional Plan is due to expire for public consultation as of next month. I'm happy to write on behalf of Council with the endorsement of the Council on the provisions that we're happy with the plan, subject to the fact that it doesn't restrict us from allowing future land rezonings that aren't already captured in the regional plan. That it does also allow us to add additional documentation to that document as it needs, i.e. master plans, and then it remains a current live document so we can further contribute to that report.
Thank you, Mr. McCrosty. Are there any questions? Thank you. 14.3. Mrs. Collins.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Just a couple of little reminders for you all. There's still a week for people to provide feedback on Council's draft annual business plan and budget for next financial year, with public consultation closing at 9 a.m. next Wednesday, the 4th of June. And also tomorrow night, the South Australia Police Community Forum will be held in the Naracoorte Town Hall, which is being supported by Council. The free event aims to improve community discussion, awareness, and bring attention to the complexities of domestic abuse, and I encourage everyone to attend if they can. It'll kick off at 3 p.m. tomorrow with some stands from domestic violence support services, offering specialist advice and support in the Town Hall foyer, and the main event will get underway at 5:30 p.m. in the auditorium with guest speaker Dr. Renee Hart from SA Police's Family and Domestic Violence section. Thank you, Mayor Ross.
Can I just take this moment to pick up on the National Volunteer Week part of that. That was last week from the 19th until the 25th. Obviously, we've had a lot of groups nominated, which is lovely, and they will receive their certificate from you, which is nice. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank all the volunteers in our community. It is a thankless job, but without volunteers, a lot of things wouldn't happen in our regional communities. So obviously there have been groups nominated, but there obviously hasn't been a lot of people nominated. So just to those out there, thank you for what you do. It is truly appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Crosling. And yes, you know, many of us are volunteers, and I do know that volunteerism across the state is falling, and we need to do what we can to encourage our peers and people, and we lead that by example, I think, when it comes to volunteering, and the youth will follow along if we are good examples at volunteering. Publications, right. Item 15, publications documents. There being none. Questions with notice. I don't have any. Motions with notice. There are none. But I do have a question without notice that I took from Councillor Goodman, and I'm happy for her to put her question.
Thank you. It's with some notice. This question is the result of our briefing session last week on the road reports and the discussion that we had about the information that has been provided through those reports and the place it puts us in now moving forward and how we can use that. I think an important part is recognising what we have already taken from those reports. And so my question is, has Council implemented any changes to work practices, that's both administrative and on-ground work practices, as a result of both the Tallis and Wheaton's report? And if so, what they are, and happy if that's something that's taken on notice.
Thank you. Mr Willsmore.
Happy to respond now. Thanks for your question. So there was a number of practices being undertaken that we shared with the consultants, and they were seen in a favourable light. So we're continuing with these. So they include work to capture more data through our GIS system. They were supportive of our trial of using a 40mm material, crushed material, rather than our standard 70mm. Our ongoing review of our internal plant rates, ongoing periodic pavement condition assessment, and the targeted patching to improve shape and drainage on our roads. It's important to note we're still working through with the Wheaton report, and a small group of us internally will meet in the next few weeks to undertake a further review into our planning and practices. The asset revaluation and condition assessment undertaken by Tallis has been used to inform the endorsed infrastructure asset management plan. Further that, after reviewing the ReSheet data discussed with Tallis, they supported the adoption of the longer expected lives as it compared to the industry standards. The network-wide condition rating of each road segment also has been used for forward works planning, both from an operational and capital expenditure perspective. And while we're still waiting on some further information to be confirmed by Wheaton, our aim is to work with the team to identify any further actions that can be undertaken to support roadwork efficiencies, and we hope to discuss these initiatives with Council as we progress our asset management plans.
Thank you, Mr Willsmore.
May I ask a question? You can decline it once I say it. It's just related to what we were talking about. That's all. I should have asked.
Asked. Thank you, Councillor Maguire.
Tread carefully. Sorry, just regarding the workshop that we did have on those two reports, there has been a fairly publicly followed journey. The ratepayers spent $120,000 on those two reports. My question is, seeing as there was no media present and it wasn't live streamed, as a council, would the CEO or yourself, how are we going to get that out, our discussion within that workshop, to the public? Because they paid for it, they should really know what our overall view.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire, and that is a great question.
Yep.
Through you, Mayor, as explained in the briefing session, the reports had two distinct purposes. So one was your condition assessment and valuation of the roads, so that is something you have to do anyway. And the other one was about the roadworks efficiency and plant equipment review. We're still waiting for some information in relation to that, and as Daniel said, there's a few of us getting together in a few weeks to, I guess, deep dive into some of that information. I've got a hook up with Wheaton, I think next week, a Teams meeting with them next week. So I want to just ask a few more questions about some of their information. Until I'm satisfied that we've got everything and it's in a clear and logical sense, we won't be making that public. But the Tallis report and the draft Wheaton's report were both included in the November council meeting agenda. So in essence are in the public realm anyway. But once we've got a bit more information from Wheaton, we can form some key messages and get that into the council agenda again.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. There being no further questions without notice.
Sorry.
There are no motions without notice. There are no motions without notice. And there are no matters that the CEO recommends to be considered in confidence. And there being no further business, I close the meeting. Thank you very much.